This fic is rated T on fanfiction.net for language, abuse, and death imagery. It is not recommended for audiences under the age of 13. If you have any questions about the fiction rating system, please use the link in the description for fictionratings.com. Now with that out of the way, let's dive into this story. Firework by Pagan Punk 2, Chapter 4. Pulling the car into its spot in the garage, Bruce shifted it to park and removed the key from the ignition. Then he just sat, staring down at the emblem embossed on the center of the steering wheel. I must be losing my goddamn mind. The circus had been held out on the very edge of Gotham jurisdiction, near where the municipal line for Newtown cut through. As such, it had taken him nearly an hour to drive around the city and up to the manor, and he had wrangled with himself the entire way. They're taking him from everything he knows. The kids who go into the city system don't tend to come out okay on the far end, not unless they get picked up by good parents quickly. And if he isn't one of those lucky few, how long before Batman's sending him off to jail? 5 years? 10? He doesn't deserve that. None of them do, but this wasn't his fault. It wasn't even his parents' fault if it turns out that this was all tied back to the protection racket Haley mentioned. But it's not my concern. I can still help him. The foundation will pitch in, I'll make sure of that. But I can't give him a new family. Even if I could, why him? Why him when there are so many other kids out there who need good homes? And who am I, anyway, with my reputation as a business brilliant but otherwise idiotic playboy and the night hobbies of a suicidal maniac, to even be considering adopting a child? He paused, glaring so hard it was a miracle the airbag didn't go off. Adopting a child? Where the fuck did that come from? He breathed slowly, trying to calm himself. He got to me. I don't know if it was the thing with the view of the city or that I'd just seen his parents be murdered right along with him, or that damn precociousness that just leaks out of his ears, but something got to me, and that's not good. Every move that he made, in all of his guises, was calculated. After years of practice, he'd gotten very, very good at dodging injury, financial, emotional, and physical. Bruce Wayne, entrepreneur, utilized the abilities of his staff and his own raw talent to avoid the mistakes that had brought other megacorporations to their knees in recent years. Brucey, socialite extraordinaire, skillfully navigated the dangerous territory of upper-crust husband hunters by tactfully avoiding long-term entanglements. Batman, elite vigilante, trained both his body and mind constantly to reduce the odds of being incapacitated or killed in battle. There were unpredictable elements in all three of his fields of mastery, of course, but for the most part he had long ago figured out how to keep from getting hurt. And then tonight had happened, leaving him at war with himself as to what was next. The logical step, the calculating step, was to leave things be, let the boy go into the system, and hope that he would come out okay. The problem was that while he knew that was the smart thing to do, he couldn't help but question whether it was the right thing to do. Even worse, reason and morals didn't seem to be the only combatants on the field, and that downright scared him. Emotions can't enter into this, he instructed himself firmly. At least, no more than they already have. I wasn't prepared for him. How could I have been prepared for him? He had no answer for that, but it didn't really matter. The damage was done. He ached with commiseration for the boy, more deeply even than he occasionally did for other particularly innocent victims of the crimes his dark alter ego worked to stop. As if that weren't enough, the ache had been growing ever since he saw the child being rushed into the CPS agent's old sedan. Those wide blue eyes had stared out the window directly at him as the car pulled away, and he'd felt the sense of something being planted as he looked right back. Me. So many others, people he's probably known since he was born, were right there. He could have looked at any of them, should have looked at any of them. But he picked me. Shaking his head and climbing out of the vehicle finally, he felt something shift in his pocket. I can't give him a good home, he thought, for a lot of reasons, but I can find out who took his parents from him and put them away. That, at least, was something every side of the other argument could agree on. Master Wayne. Alfred met him in the foyer. I was beginning to worry. You never stay out this late as a civilian, he mused. Dare I think that you may have actually had a pleasurable evening? The show was enjoyable, I hope? A tiny line appeared between the butler's eyebrows as Bruce sat down heavily on the entry bench and began to remove his shoes. Shall I retrieve your jacket from the car, sir? No, the billionaire said slowly. It isn't in there. He still had it on. I'm surprised that wench of a public servant didn't make him give it back. It's not like she gave him the chance to go get anything other than his costume to wear. Well, good then. It's cold out tonight, and she seems like one who will keep the heat off to save gas unless he starts turning blue. He's going to need the coat. That's extremely odd. You haven't lost an article of clothing in years, at least not like this. You're rather pale, Master Wayne, the Englishman noted, his hopes that his charge might have had a few semi-normal hours evaporating. Has something happened? Are you feeling unwell? Yes to both, Alfred. I'm afraid I'm rather lost, sir. So am I. Catching sight of the look in the older man's eyes, he sighed. I'm worrying him. It's nothing, he waved away. I'm not an idiot, young man. I don't believe you. The statement was flat and to the point, and it didn't surprise Bruce in the least. Yeah, I should have known better than that, even at 2 a.m. No one's forcing you to, Alfred, he responded. And now petulance. It's been some time, but very well. Quite right. In that case, sir, won't you be so kind as to enlighten me as to the no doubt wondrous sights you beheld this evening? It's been many years since I witnessed a good circus, but I enjoyed them in my time. The words were polite, but his tone was ice, and the billionaire had to suppress a shiver. You never miss a thing, do you, old man? You're not going to let this go, are you? You're troubled, sir. That being the case, I'm afraid that I can't let it go. He handed his shoes over, and the heart of the matter slipped out. There was a death this evening. 2. Oh? The butler asked quietly. Were you involved somehow, or... Having to give a statement could certainly have kept you late, he considered, but this seems more deep-seated than a mere witnessing of a tragedy. Not at first. Not at first, Master Wayne? Alfred repeated incredulously as he set the Oxfords aside to be shined later. What on earth does that mean? The equipment for the trapeze act was tampered with, he revealed, remaining hunched over with his fingers on his temples. 2 of the performers were killed. He paused. They left a child behind. A young boy, an incredible young boy. Pressing in on the sides of his head, he began to rub in slow circles. Why did I say that? Incredible? I don't even know this kid. He frowned. Dick. I don't even know Dick. Calling him kid makes me sound like Caruso, or worse, he shuddered, like the social worker. This occurred during the show, I take it, sir? Yeah. He was right there, just a few dozen feet away. He saw it all, Alfred. And naturally, he reminded you of yourself. Bloody hell, it had to be a double murder, didn't it? No wonder you seem a bit of a mess. Why don't you come into the den? He suggested softly. Perhaps you can fill me in greater detail there. He's right. I need to talk this out. If nothing else, maybe it will help me figure out what the hell's going on inside my head. Fine. Sure. I'll just fix you up some coffee first, shall I? I rather doubt that you'll be getting much sleep tonight. The caffeine will come in handy. Yeah, that would be good, he nodded, realizing suddenly that he was intensely thirsty after a number of hours with nothing to drink. Rising, he headed down the hallway to the den and dropped into his usual recliner. Alfred appeared less than a minute behind him, bearing a tray. Did you already have that made? The billionaire arched an eyebrow. I may have had a slight inkling that it would be desired, he answered as he handed over a steaming cup and proceeded to sit on the couch. Settled in for what he expected might be a long haul, he gave his charge an expectant look. Well, sir? Well? He launched slowly into a full recap of the events of the evening, from his nearly late arrival at the show to his discovery of the boy high up in a tree and the talk that had followed. I don't know what happened out there tonight, Alfred, he admitted, but part of me didn't want him to get into that car with the CPS agent. I don't quite take your meaning, Master Wayne, the Englishman asked for elucidation. He should stay with the circus. Those people care for him. You should have seen them mobilize when they realized he was missing, and it's at least the world that he knows. Perhaps the Foundation's lawyers can be of assistance in helping him remain with the troupe. No, he shook his head. That's not the sense I got from the social worker. She seemed absolutely positive that he'll never be allowed to stay with them. And if he goes into the system... Where are you going with this? Setting his cup aside, Alfred leaned forward. What is it exactly that you're trying to tell me? I was thinking we should... I think I should... Well... He needs a home, and if they won't let him stay with the circus... I was just thinking... maybe... Bruce... The Englishman paused, biting back a sigh as he tried to determine how best to point out the numerous flaws in that idea. Think about what you're saying. How will you juggle everything, plus a child who has recently been through a highly emotional event? Your business and social concerns aside, what about your night work? Never mind the fact that you still have entire days when you lock yourself in your study or the cave and simply refuse to come out. He let his look relay. I know you say you're working, and I've no doubt that you do get copious amounts done, but we both know it's your substitution for grieving. 20 years, and despite every possible effort having been made, you're still stuck in that holding pattern. That's no environment for a similarly wounded child to be surrounded by. I know, he protested. I know. I don't know, Alfred. Part of me sounds like you, a big part of me, and I know that there are a dozen very good arguments as to why I should never... Well, you know, kids. But... Dick's words came back to him, and he put them to work. But he understands, he breathed. Understands what? Oh, God, everything it seemed like. A lot more than any normal 8-year-old would. And that's my point. He's not normal, I don't think, at least not in some ways. But he is familiar. There were moments out there tonight when it almost felt like I was talking to myself. He hadn't realized it at the time, but once he'd said as much, he knew it was true. I know where this could go for him because I've been there, but there's something, I don't know, different about him. I said something to him right before he was taken away by CPS. "And what was that, sir?" the butler inquired. "This is insanity. You have it in you to be a good father, of that I'm certain, but there are so many storm clouds between that part of you and the rest of the world. It would take an immense amount of brightness to burn away so much as a portion of that horrid fog you've let build for 2 decades, and even then, I don't know that it would be enough." I told him to have a dreamless sleep, and the corners of his mouth turned up slightly, and he said, "You too." But he damn near smiled when he said it. It took a lot of effort, I could tell that much, but the point is, he managed it. He smiled at me, and a tiny look of wavering happiness appeared on his face as the memory of that pointed little face shoved away the naysaying thoughts that had plagued him the entire way home. And I've never felt a connection quite like that before, Alfred. I can't explain it. "Good Lord, you're all but smiling yourself. Genuinely, not that fake monstrosity you put on for the girls," the butler boggled. For all that he loved it, however, he knew that there was still the problem of Bruce's internal defenses to be dealt with. "You smile now, but how long will it last? I know you, Master Wayne, and if there is anything in this world that you fear, it is once more experiencing the level of emotional pain you were served a double helping of as a child. You say that you've never felt a connection quite like that before, and I fear that I know where that connection will lead if you follow it. You're affected right now, that much is obvious. He got to you somehow. Heaven only knows how he managed it, since no one else ever has, to my knowledge. But the point is that if an hour of talk and tears penetrated the walls you've spent 2 decades building, a few days will have you ceding the castle. It would be an excellent thing for you if you could somehow manage to let yourself love again. Perhaps," he considered wistfully, "the best thing I've ever seen. I would gladly lead the charge for this boy if I could honestly believe that there won't be a terrible backlash once you realize how far into your heart you've allowed him. Unfortunately, however, and shamefully I might add, I have very little faith that you will be able to conquer your demons to the extent necessary to offer this child a good home. It's risky, my boy, so very risky. If you take him in and then cannot quell your fears to a reasonable extent, I'm afraid they will tear you apart. But at the same time," he sighed, "I cannot bring myself to heartlessly snuff out the tiny spark you're carrying this evening. Not when it's been so very long since I saw anything like it in you. You're smiling, for God's sake. If a mere memory of him can do that, what might his actual presence at your side be capable of? Perhaps it's worth a try at that. But you've got to be sure. And even if you are, it's still utterly mad. But if you're sure, then I will, as always, support you." "Well, sir," he opined pensively after a lengthy silence, "if I may, perhaps you ought to sleep on it. Several times, even. You must be absolutely certain," he stressed as he sensed an argument rising. "It will hurt the boy if you begin proceedings and then change your mind," he pointed out. "And if you truly did feel a connection with him," he went on as he rose, "then I imagine that hurting him is the last thing you want to do, is it not?" "He's been hurt enough," the billionaire grimaced. "I just want to make sure that he isn't hurt any more." His hand went into his pocket. "But they aren't going to get away with it." "Night work, then," the butler nodded. "You seem to process decisions almost as well during that activity as during sleep these days, so I suppose the cave is a fair second to your bed as a place to mull this mad idea of yours over. Will Batman be going out tonight?" "Don't. You're distracted. It will only end badly if you do." "No. It's late and it will take some time to narrow down the chemical used on the wires. Never mind pulling a file together for the case," he added with a slight frown. "I wonder if that CPS agent has started inputting her notes yet," he pondered. "If I don't get to it tonight, I'll break into their digital case files tomorrow. From the way she was acting, I have the feeling she's going to give him black marks wherever she can." "Very good, sir," Alfred nodded, hiding his relief. "And do think things over, Master Wayne. There's no need to rush into anything. It doesn't sound as if the authorities are likely to find relations to take him in any time soon. Make sure this is something that you can and truly want to do," he advised sagely, hiding the fear he felt growing in his guts for the child he'd raised. "Sure, Alfred, I'll think it over," he promised, climbing to his feet in preparation to head for the cave. "He's right. I know he's right, but I'm confident about this. I can handle it. I think."